Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brad from the Ed Army, and today we are going to be talking about how these Neos retrains and how Neos as a whole could be retrained and make it better. So I'm going to be jumping into it right now. As with my last video about talking about how Neos was still not functional, I think a lot of people who commented down below mostly agreed with the sentiment because I think it was pretty much an obvious point that it's not functional. And I do want to clarify something because I did see a few comments that they didn't get me mad or anything. It's just I think maybe people misunderstand what I meant by functional. Well, my point is a functional because I think I wrote it down in the comments. So if you want to check it out, if not, so is the point that the deck just doesn't work on its own. Like it doesn't work with the Neospatians. It doesn't work with Neos, even though Neos is an elemental hero. The problem is there's no bridge. Like I think I mentioned in the video, there's no bridge between the Neospatians. There's no bridge between elemental heroes effectively. I know the EN cards exist, but we still don't have enough of a bridge to unite them. So my point is the deck just doesn't work on its own legs. Even though I think a lot of the monsters are really good. Like I think in my video I talked about how good each of them are, but I disparagingly talked about them because there's just some logic that doesn't make sense with them. I still don't like the fact that for like Arm Neos, you need a monster that really you don't want to see in your hand at any times because it does nothing with the archetype and it does nothing with the Neospatians, and it's not an elemental hero like Rainbow Neos. That's one of my problems is neither of them are hero monsters. They're literally like Neos plus whatever it was combined with, and it's like it doesn't make sense. It should just be a hero monster anyways. But I like I said, I don't understand that. And then additionally, there's some ways of saying like, oh, sometimes it's not good, so it's not that bad. Like you just take the good with the bad. And I just want to make sure it wasn't a negative approach for it. Because when I get into the retrains, it's not really to poop on what they did with the deck or what they haven't done with the deck. It's just more so to explain to people who have never watched is like, this is why the deck struggles. This is why like if you've never seen it really do anything, this is why, because like the deck just isn't designed properly for the modern day. It wasn't designed in its iterations, and it definitely needs a modern like reswipe to get working. So if anyone's wondering why this is also now even more relevant, is that after we've received the announcement of our masked hero cards for the hero archetype, we've literally seen how 2 to 3 cards have really revamped an entire form of the hero strategy. So if you're wondering what I mean, that is like if you look at the quality in Dust Crow, you see that in what is it called? Is it Furnace? I watched, I've read the cards. The names have gone by, but basically our Fire Mask hero and the extra deck Fire Mask hero as well. The key thing that I thought was so crazy is that 3 cards literally can turn a deck back to normal. And I mean, even if it's just like pure hero, they finally made Masked Hero like a more functional strategy, and it only took 3 cards. So this is kind of why, like, if anyone's wondering, this is why I kind of get mad sometimes with archetypes that have existed for so long. I know Konami might be saving some special spice for them in some upcoming set or something, but it's kind of ridiculous when you see a branch of a deck not be able to do anything, and then the another branch of a deck gets very little cards, and it's more functional than an entire branch that has like 20 to 30 cards maybe available to it as well. Like that's how I view Vision Heroes versus like Neos as an actual group, because I think even though Vision Hero doesn't look like it's that good of a deck, it's still playable. Whereas there's no reason that Neos can't be more playable than it is because it's existed for so long. And that's why we're talking about the retrains. So we're going to be jumping into it because, like I said, this isn't about a negative tree. This is about branching that tree, taking that branch I said that fell off in the last video and sticking it onto the tree and letting it grow back really well so that Neos can stand prominently among the hero branch and actually diversify itself out. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the actual way to fix the deck, because there's multiple ways to go about it. There's multiple ways to kind of focus on it, and then there's also ways that Konami could just say we want to save on the paper aspect of it, and we don't want to really print tons of cards, so we're going to only do like 2 things. So this is the key thing. Whether we go on the high branch, which is like multiple cards, or the low branch, which is like very few but extremely powerful cards, is kind of up to Konami. I personally think that the Neospatians and the Neos branch is so old that I think an entire wave of cards is actually not unreasonable at this point and can still function relatively well. I think the best way to start it is finally doing something that I think a lot of people have been waiting for, and that's the introduction of Neo Heroes. So I do think it's about time that the Neospatians join the hero archetype, even if they're not going to be, warriors. Like there are warriors, but not like a ton of them. So what I mean is we can finally have the Neo heroes. So they'll obviously have the hero name in their actual titles, but they'll also still retain everything about them. They could have a little bit slight design changes, and it does allow the deck to finally come into existence with the new Neospacians becoming hero monsters. Obviously, we have things like Elemental Hero Nops, which is like just really a rose flower. So like, Air Hummingbird and their gang finally becoming elemental heroes. It's not impossible. Also, I always never understood why Rottweiler was never created to be an elemental hero monster. It's just because it mentions heroes. But, that's a different argument for another day. Point is, this is something that I think should happen because by adding the Neo heroes, you can do a lot of different like elements to fix the deck. I think by giving all the different Neospatians upgrades into like hero forms, it's not really changing too much. They're literally just going to have the same designs but have better effects. So I think in all of the cases of them, you can still incorporate all of their effects. I do think that when it comes down to how the deck should be designed, this is where I think the change needs to happen because I do want to find a way to make all of the other Neospatian fusions, or sorry, all the Neos fusions available to this archetype. So obviously the Neos, or the Neospatians that are now Neo heroes would all still retain their names in terms of like always being treated as, or this card is also treated as, blah 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 blah, and then it retains that ability to contact fuse as well. I do think that the main element for the Neo heroes is that they all can now kind of like focus around each other. So I think a great way to do this is that they could set up what I think the future is going to be, being the triple Neos fusions, which is something that already exists. But I think we can make new combinations based on the Neo heroes as well as the old Neospatians kind of working together, and this allows you to partner them up with the brand new Elemental Hero Neos. I do think it's about time to see some like Elemental Hero Neos as well, which would be kind of funny, but is kind of the point. Is like having a new form for Neos that also is a part of its own archetype is cool. I think it should be a starter, like I think Furnace is. I think it's Master Hero Furnace. I could be wrong, but having a starter like that, where instead where you reveal it, it summons itself, or you control the monster, summons itself, and then allows you access to a new card or some type of combination is fine. I think an element that needs to be incorporated is that whatever the new monsters are, I think they should focus around a field spell. I think actually having the Neo strategy focus around a field spell is fine, but not like be so dependent on it. I think a new Neo space like Neo Space 3, or just being called like Neo Space Next Generation or something along those lines, like to make sense of it, have that be the way that links together the Neo heroes and Neos' evolution, and then also have a more iterations to it. So I think what would be cool is that the new Neo space does do the same thing as the first one, so the monsters don't get shuffled back, but additionally having better buffs. So I think what would be better is that if a monster that has different materials based on its amount of materials is on the field, it gains different effects. So I think a cool thing would be, since Neos's main fusions are basically meant to go second, in my opinion, outside of Aqua Neos, which is my personal opinion, but I mean, you could literally look at the effects. They're all designed to go second. One negates cards on the field, one literally allows you to destroy cards on the field, one allows you to bounce cards, one gains attack, one also gains attack based on life point difference. They're all focused on going second. So if that's the case, why don't we give them a little bit more additional buffs? Something along the lines of, if a monster is made with only one material in Neos, you gain like maybe 500 attack. That's simple. But if it makes with two other materials, you have something along the lines of, this monster also cannot be like targeted by card effects. Then, God forbid it's made with 3 or 4 materials, 3 or more, you give it some unaffected ability as well. So very similar to like Cosmo Neos, but instead of turning off your opponent, turning off your opponent's effects, you can just turn off effects hurting your monsters. So that would be really good, and I think that's actually pretty fine. It makes the deck actually have a really good relative potential, and also it means going first, you just want to turbo into something with the field spell up, and then you're able to access it. Now, I do think 2 ways of going about the field spell is cool, because you can also make some of the new Neo heroes search for them. So I think having a lot of them be starters and then some of them be extenders is fine. I think a good way to do it is like make some of the more prominent ones in their contact fusions. focus more on like searching out for other pieces, and then also the other one's searching for like the spells, the traps, vice versa. So I think because there's actually 6 Neospatians, it's pretty cool that you can like give a lot of them more important roles. I think the ones that were less used, but also would be the new focus of the fusions, would definitely be cooler to see. So like maybe the searcher for the field spell is like the new glow moss, or maybe the searcher for the other heroes, or for like specifically the new Neos would be like Flare Scarab, right? Like the ones that see that saw less play in the original like set of the cards, and then versus the ones that are now like probably more prominent to see, they have more of a backup role. But like I said, it's cool. Like I think that's how you design the archetype to work if you want a whole rebrand, because I think the ultimate goal of the archetype is just to find its way to make the contact fusion stick, but also at the same time give the replacement ability. So like at the end of the turn, when a card shovels itself back, you have something like Magma. Was it Magma Neos? No, not Magma. Nebula Neos. When Nebula Neos leaves the field, he banishes everything face down. You could have something very similar, but then instead with the field spell, you could also make it being unaffected by other Neos fusion monsters specifically, or fusion monsters that have Elemental Hero Neos as its fusion material. And then basically, if a monster with like, I think it would be cool to say, if a monster with 3 or more, or is made with 3 or more material shuffled back into your deck or extra deck, is leaves the field in any way, right? Anyway, like it's shuffled back, or or it says if it was returned by its own effect, or it leaves the field by your opponent's effect, or battle, you can then special summon one elemental hero monster that lists elemental hero Neos in its text. And then if you do that, you could then resolve this by saying maybe summon a Neo hero monster from your grave or banished. So effectively meaning that you'd still have to find a way to get the new Neospatians into the grave or into the banish zone, but simultaneously you could then also bring out your Neos to contact fuse with, and then it would be pretty solid. Like that's kind of the key, is like I think that's the element to go with, because then you can rebranch the whole strategy around it. Like I said, you have 6 Neospatians, which at first I thought that was kind of stupid because there's so many, but I'm like, you could run all of them in the deck if they all do different parts. I think it's really cool that maybe you have 2 of them lead into a new triple fusion, and then they work together a little bit better, and then the other 2 lead into another triple fusion, they work a bit better. The other 2 work into another triple fusion, they work a bit better. You already kind of see that there's some missing triple fusion elemental hero monsters. So, you can just always do, or triple Neos fusion monsters, and then you could always do that. So pretty much my way of doing it would be that principle, because I think going along those lines, there's so much room for improvement. You could really make an entire like archetype based around it. And I think a lot of people wouldn't be mad, because you could find ways to make the other monsters work with new spells, new traps. You could also use Engage Neospace as a way to now finally work properly, because you could have something like the new Elemental Hero Neos be a card that you send either from your deck or your hand, and you want it there so you can set up a bit better. So you summon out the level 5, or you can summon out the Neos from your deck through the effect of the Engage Neospace, and you start to see that the clock is working, where you can get these more powerful monsters onto the field. I do even think that there should be one of, if maybe it's the Glow Moss, or whichever one wants to be like the Prisma of the new Neo heroes. Or because what I could see is one of them lets you reveal a Neos or a monster in your extra deck that has Elemental Hero Neos as a fusion material. That monster then becomes the other material for its fusion summon when it's fusion summoned. So this allows you access to Arm Neos. This allows you access to Rainbow Neos. This allows you access to literally whatever you want, Niels Kluger. So like I said, the point is I've tried my best to try to find ways to fix it and then make it work. Honestly, when it comes to the fusions and the like spells and traps, it's pretty easy what we need. A lot of the cards that were released, like EN Wave, was almost good. I think the problem is it's not a starter. It should have been a starter as well. Additionally, when we look at something like the fusions, honestly, they could retain most of their effects, but still be pretty solid. So like if you look at the effects of all of the original contact monsters, I think I haven't made a video on this, but I do believe that all of them are still extremely powerful for what they're worth. Like I said, you have a pop, attack gain, you have a bounce, you have, like I said, you have a hand rip. Like, how many decks actually have access to hand ripping? It's not a lot. Point is, the monster's effects are still good. So maybe we just need to find a way to make them a little bit better. So for this, I think one thing that could be done is that changing some of their effects around so you can choose different effects and or vice versa, new effects. So one thing I could see is that each of the fusions, the new fusions, all have the ability to choose to use their first effect as a quick effect, or they can choose to use another effect. But if they do, they can't use this effect until the end of the next turn. So it means that this effect has to be very impactful. So in the case of all of them, I do think what it could be is that the second effect that they all share is that if you choose to use that, you can special summon one elemental hero Neo specifically, or one Neo hero monster from your deck, either ignoring its summoning conditions or vice versa, special summon it, but its effects are negated if any. Main reason for this is to extend, so that now you can summon back cards you've put back in your deck to summon the monster, and it refills it. Additionally, you also have their first effects, which would be whatever they can choose to be. I think Dark Neos still having an effect negation is fine. That already makes it really good in the hero archetype. Aqua Dolphin having a quick effect hand rip would probably change to a quick effect hand banish, which is kind of normal as of something like the Mermails. Additionally, I think, if it's going to be quick effect, I think what could happen too is that it's a quick effect hand rip, but it's a quick effect hand rip until the end of the turn, which is probably more fair. Grand Mole, just a permanent bounce, but it's quick effect. The Glow Neos, I think, honestly, at this point, they should just get rid of the dice roll effect thing and just simply allow it to choose to destroy. Actually, what could be cool here is that I thought about this for Glow Neos. It's that you can choose to destroy a card on your field. However, your opponent can choose to allow you to destroy a spell or a spell trap or monster. But if they allow you to choose, you can destroy anything. So what I mean is your opponent can technically select to choose, but if you do, you have to summon back a Neo Hero monster as additional to that effect. So it sounds a little winded, but the point is, like, say they choose to let you do that, you then get a resource back out for free if they choose to make you pop something that they want popped. If they let you do it, you don't get anything in return, but you still get to pick whatever you want. So I think that's a completely fair and somewhat balanced way to handle a pop effect. And yeah, it's a quick effect. Point is, having the Neos and summoning back, summoning a Neos and summoning back and like a new hero monster would be cool, because this whole archetype can just revolve around like spitting out like 2 to 3 bodies that can do quick effects, or vice versa. So like they're still big, because remember, they'll get like different attack buffs from the field spell. I do think the interesting thing is when we talk about like Air Neos and Flare Neos, because these, obviously, if we get a retrain, it would not be Air Neos probably, because of the whole Ravidactyl thing that we figured out with what happened to Air Neos. Really sad, but I don't think Air Neos would return. Point is that we would get a whole new monster altogether, which is fine. But like for Flare Neos, I still think that those two should be purely going second based. So I think what the new Flare Neos should focus on is that it would just gain attack based on all the cards on the field, like a mini, what is it called? A mini Magma Neos. But like maybe it's only like, instead of it being like 200 or 300, it's like 200 maybe for each card on the field, or 100. So it doesn't get too crazy out of hand, but it gets really big. And then you can partner that up with stuff like Honest Neos and stuff like that. So it's pretty good. The new Air Neos, though, I think is interesting, because it depends on how they want to take Air Neos going forward without using Air Neos. Because is it going to have a big attack gain effect like it did before? Then I'm like, if it does, then really cool. This means that, a Hero Lives is still very good in the deck, and it would make this whole archetype kind of tie in with heroes even more. So it is up to the abilities. Also, another thing I like, though, is if we make all of them Neo Hero monsters, or Hero monsters, or the Neospatians, they all now have ability to be targeted by something like Mass Change. And I think that's really cool with the new Mass Change support coming out, that a lot of this could like get even more higher ramping, like in terms of being very good. So the point is, we fix the Neo strategy, basically turning into like maybe a rogue to like tier 2 to 1.5 deck with all this support. Like I said, I'm not saying that what my specific effects make it great. It's just more of the baseline of the ideas could be turned into a deck of that caliber. I think the problem is this deck would still be slightly more susceptible to hand traps, but like I said, we just want to make the deck functional. We don't really need to make the deck completely broken. That's not really my intention. It's just to make the deck a viable strategy if you wanted to play it. Moving into like the final part of the video, where I think where Konami could just say, hey, we're going to make the deck functional, I think what we could do is there's a few elements. So the first one I'll talk about is they give us 3 or 4 really good support cards to fix the deck. Now, if you're wondering how this could be possible, I still think a field spell would be the main purpose of this. So giving us a brand new Neo space that probably would cover a lot of the bases I've already talked about, because I really do think something like that would be clear. Like maybe they have one that's kind of the way to link the EN cards together, which is like, oh, you activate this card, immediately add one card that lists a hero monster's name in its text. So like you'd grab access to EN Shuffle, you'd grab access to EN Wave, you grab stuff to those cards because they specifically mention Elemental Hero Neos in them, so you grab them. Additionally, you could have on top of that, I think what needs to happen is that they'll just make a the most important thing is a Neospatian that's like Prisma, where it can count as any Neospatian name. You just reveal the fusion monster. So already that takes care of one issue. I think the next issue though that has to be clear is that that monster, like Neospace, like so many others, is that when that monster would return to the extra deck, you banish it or return it to the hand, and then that monster does not leave the field. I think another thing too is there needs to be more protection for the fusion monsters if they don't want to make new double contact fusions. So I think this can go in many ways. I think my way of doing it would be have the field spell offer targeting protection for them so that your opponent can't really hit them with like Veilers and Imperms. Additionally, I think if we're talking about two more cards that could work, Retrain Neos is obvious. I think they need to make a new Elemental Hero Neos that can also like summon itself. I think honestly, I think if it is Master Hero Furnace, I think they have covered a lot of bases in actually fixing that type of concept, because I think a level 7 monster that can summon itself out to the field is completely fair and not really too broken, and then it's going to be treated as Elemental Hero Neos on the field and in the grave, and then you can contact fuse that way. I think the smart thing too is have that monster be able to do two things. One, it can allow you to specifically special summon a Neospatian from your deck. But then for the rest of the turn, you're locked into hero monsters, period, or you're locked into monsters that specifically list Elemental Hero Neos as a fusion material. I would personally not like that, but I could see that being an option. And then it lets you the ability to contact fuse. And then finally, I think the hardest part about like having like 4 cards to do this archetype is that the final card needs to be either another spell that lets you search. So thinking maybe something like awaken the Neospatians, or something that's like a new anagram for Neos and the Neospatians, and it kind of like maybe it allows you to do like Neos fusion, but allows you to fuse with from the deck. So like maybe it says send 3 different cards, specifically one Neospatian, no, 2 Neospatians and 1 Elemental Hero Neos from your hand deck to the graveyard. And then you can summon, ignoring its summoning conditions, a triple contact fusion hero monster to the field. That monster cannot be returned to the extra deck by any effects, and then that basically you just get access to that. So the reason I say triple versus like 4 or 3 or more, because I don't think you should be able to summon Cosmo Neos, that'd be too strong. But I do think if you could drop Magma Neos on someone, Nebula Neos on someone, Storm Neos even on someone, like these are cards that are extremely good, but I do not think are so overtly broken that this card would actually just like make the game impossible to play, because then you could just say for the rest of the turn you cannot special summon any monsters, and then your opponent pretty much gets hit with that one triple contact fusion. The triple contact fusion stays around, but then pretty much it's like, there you go, pretty good, pretty solid. I think Nebula Neos lets you draw cards. Magma Neos would just get really big. Yeah, you could see the writings on the wall for how to design these cards, and ultimately how to make them very good. Because I think that's the direction that Konami should go with retraining them, and should be the way to push them forward. But guys, those are just some of my ideas to fix the actual Neos monsters and fix the Neos archetype, giving them the retrains that I think could get them to the next level. I think if you have any ideas that would be better, or you think are better, let me know down below in the comments below. I'm here to hear out everyone. These are just my ideas of what I think could work, and I'm not really gonna like argue with people about it, because these are just fictional cards. We're meant to have fun. We're not really meant to fight. We're meant to also build up from each other. So whoever that one who was commenting about the Neo stuff before, if you do read this, it's not an attack on you, by the way, because I actually really did like what you said. But it's like how I felt when I played the deck before, when I tried to build Neos, is that in the end I realized I was just coping, kind of, because I'm like, the deck just, it doesn't work. Like I was like, it just doesn't work, and I hated that I couldn't make it work. And even when I put in all the other hero cards, I'm like, I might as well just play Omni Hero, which was better. So like I said, not an attack on you if you watch it. It was just more of, you actually kind of inspired me to think harder to make the deck better. Because I was like, I want to make this deck better, because I'm like, I hate when we have to go through situations when Konami makes some of these strategies and they just don't make them better. Like they just leave them and then they kind of rust. It's like a car that breaks down and you're trying to fix it. I think I used this analogy before, but then you take off the new tires and you need to put new tires on, but you realize your entire rims are rusted and then you need to replace your rims, because it's like there's more than one problem with the car, but the people that you're working with to try to fix it, they're only giving you one piece at a time. So besides that analogy, guys, I hope you understand. I liked it. Hope you enjoyed the video. I mean, yeah, like I said, let me know down below what you think. It does help out. But as always, this has been Brad from the Ad Army signing off. And for all of you out there, to sign on.